But in 2018, they're both doing the same thing. So all of them would understand the point, so you don't have that issue. But anyways, you will open a file, and based on that file, you will run the Dynamo on top of that. So the Dynamo is always reading information from that file. It's always important. In the future, you may have a Dynamo file, you want to link it to a new file, and then you would know why it's happening or not. I don't know what this thing is, but anyways. So I would open a new Revit file. Which is this. Then based on, again, the version of your Revit, either it's under add-ins or under manage, you would find Dynamo. So you would click on it and you would open. Has any of you used Dynamo before? No? Okay. I was told that you guys are awesome in Grasshopper. Is that true? Okay. I was not joking, honestly. Okay, so this is Dynamo and what it looks. So when you open it, it will give you this very easily and quickly. You will just click on new and you will get this. Just to show you guys where things are. So as similar to any other programs, you have a menu on the top with file edit and that kind of thing. So I'm not going to go through the boring stuff like open and close, but a few things that are different and you may want to use. So under edit, you have a few tools that you may want to use. So how to create nodes and how to create groups, and it's something that you will use afterwards, is under edit. And also how to align your widgets in the environment and how to clean up the layout is also under edit. So those are things that are different and you can do under edit. Under view, in a minute I'll come back and I'll show you guys how you can change different stuff in your environment under view and what to show and what not to show. Packages are kind of similar to plugins in Grasshopper, so you can go search for packages. People are writing packages each day. You can go in and download them and use them for specific uses you may want to have. You may spend like an hour to generate the form or a script that works for you, and there may already be in a package for it somewhere which you can use. So do a quick look into this and see what's available based on the project you want to do. And then setting and help, which is setting and help. So next area is the home window over here, where you would place your widgets that you get from the library here. So doesn't matter, I'm just doing this randomly to place a few things here. So you would place them there, and then you can navigate through this. As you can see, what's happening at the front and the widgets are on is different from the background. So I have only control on this. I'm zooming in and out with scroll and panning around, but I have no control on the background. How to switch between is using these two buttons on the side corner, top corner. So going back here, now I have control on the background, which is actually where the geometry and the result is going to happen. So it will make more sense in the examples, but usually what you want to do is to have this somewhere on the side, and then you will mainly be working on these guys, and a short key to switching between these two is Control B. So you are doing something here and then you want to see the result and go around, you would do Control B and orbit and rotate. It's also a little bit weird that inside Revit you would do scroll and shift to orbit around, but here it's more similar to Rhino, so you would do right click to orbit around, and it's still a scroll click to pan. Okay, so that's the home environment. Then you got your library on the side. Another thing I really encourage you to do is to go and explore and see what's inside. So you can search for the things that you want and type in, then it will give you a long list of the potentials that you may mean by that input, and then when you hover around it, it will give you the information of what this widget does, what are the inputs, and what are the outputs. So take your time, go explore, putting stuff and read them and see what they do. A more interesting way to do that is to open these guys. For example, under geometry, it has a lot of subcategories. Let's say under mesh, not a good example, under, okay, under coordinate systems, it has a series of different nodes that I can select and place on my canvas here. So that's one of them. Okay, that's one of them. I'm just going to delete because that was heavy. But you can see this green thing here. That means create. So anything under that green plus sign means that you are creating something. Anything under this lightening red thing is an action that you are causing in your environment, and anything under this blue greenish query sign is kind of you're asking a question from the geometry or from the system, or you're getting an information or analyzing something. So those are the three categories you usually see under Dynamo. So go in, open these guys, see what they have, see what's available. It's always important to know what are your tools. So if I want to draw a rectangle, I need to know, can I draw lines? If yes, how can I draw lines? How can I define it? Is it by points? If yes, how can I define points? And all those kind of things. So if you go through these, you will know what's available for you. The last thing that is very important in Dynamo is this little thing at the bottom. It's on automatic by default. So this is how your script is reading and running. So if it's on automatic, similar to Grasshopper, at any given moment of time, it is reading it and it's running and it's taking your RAM and it's calculating. The problem with Dynamo is that it's recordings, but it's stupid. It's kind of going crazy, and sometimes it gets buggy for no reason. So a lot of times it's safer to be under manual. So instead of it reading it all the time, you would go under manual, and then as soon as you want to get something, you would hit run. It would think only once, generate the result for you, and show you. If you're under automatic, a lot of times if you have sliders, if you are doing loops, or anything that is a little bit complicated, it may freeze or hang very easily. So make sure you save lots, and make sure if you're doing something that is a little bit complicated, you're under manual and you're doing that. So that is very important to know in Revit. Okay, I just remembered that I missed one piece from the presentation, so I'm just going to go back and show it because it's kind of appropriate at this point. A lot of people are comparing Dynamo and Revit, and Dynamo and Grasshopper, seeing which one's better, which one's not. And a lot of people who are doing design are using Grasshopper these days. However, Dynamo does things in Revit very easily that you cannot even think about going back to Grasshopper and do those in Grasshopper and bring it into Revit, because everybody everywhere is using Revit these days. So it's very useful if you have something that is closely connected. But at the same time, a lot of people still prefer to use both or Grasshopper and use Revit and go in between. So there's a lot of workflows defined, and specifically for Grasshopper and Rhino, as you can see here, there are lots of different tools that you can use, and you can have a good relationship between Rhino and Revit, Grasshopper, and Dynamo at the same time. So you can live have different windows running and have different geometries showing up in all those different programs and having control over them. So the workflows between these things, using some of these plugins that you can see the names here on the screen, like the Flux, the Revit, the Chameleon, or all these kind of different tools, are kind of the next thing that people are really interested in these days and working on. So, okay, any questions about the interface so far? No? All good? Okay. So very quickly, I'm just gonna show you guys how to start and do a few things here. So first of all, I want to draw a point. So one way is to, under here, know where the point is and go find it and place it. The other way is to search for points from this search thing over here. And the fastest thing that I prefer most is to right click on the screen and just type in. And this is very useful, and especially comparing to Grasshopper, it gives you this kind of thing in the side that you can scroll and see the options to infinity, versus Grasshopper that does not do this for you. But anyways, if you do points, you can pick point by coordinates. As you can see, it says from a point given 3 coordinates, inputs are x, y, and z, and outputs a point. So this is what I want. I would select that, and it will give me the node. So this is a node, and if you stand on it, it will show what's inside a node. For now, it's a point at 0 and 0 and 0. Then you can see over here, if I select my node, the point will show up and be blue. If I do Control B, and I can go around and maybe get closer to my point a little bit. Control B, coming back. So this is a node. Now I need to put in numbers for X, Y, and Z. So I would right click and say number there. Here's a number. I would type in, for example, 100, enter. Again, this is different from Grasshopper. You don't drag an input, you click and click to connect the wires. And then you click and release to disconnect. So click to connect, and click in the open space to disconnect. So X will go to 100, and that was too big because the point is out of view. As you can see, that's where the point is. Control C, Control V makes a copy of the number. Another 10 would go to Y, so 10 and 10, and another would go to Z, so 10 and 10 and 10. Doing a Control B, I can see now I'm moving a point around with those given numbers, and if I change these to a different number, you can see how the placement of the object is changing in the environment based on these number inputs. Okay, any of the nodes that you have here in the environment, because a few minutes into this kind of process you will have a big script that is a little bit difficult to manage and find things around. It's always good to give them a name that you know what that thing is. At the same time, if you change the name, you may not know in the future what nodes you use, and they may be a bit difficult to find it later and repeat the same thing that you were doing. So that's the trick, but you can double click on it and give it a different name. I'm going to call it that point and accept. So now this is called that point. So if I stay on it, it says that it is a point from 3 coordinates, but it doesn't show what the actual name of this thing is. So if I want to search for it and do it again, it may be a bit difficult. So, but it's useful to know what each of these nodes that you put in do, so that later on, especially for the inputs, like instead of this thing saying number, I can say whatever this does, and then I know that what that input is in the future. I can go in and change that. Okay, so that's that. And then it's usually a script works from left to right. So here are the inputs, and as you go there, that's the output. So now if I want to use the point somewhere, this is the output. I can select and connect to something. There's a tool in Dynamo called Watch. This is similar to the panel in Grasshopper. So you would right click and say Watch, and there are 3 different types. So the first one, the watch image we don't need, but the first one is watch, which is exactly what a panel would do in Grasshopper. So you would connect any kind of data that you have, and it will show it to you. So now I can see, okay, I've got a point, and this is the information of that point. The other tool that I have is Watch 3D, and this is very similar to what I have in the background. So I would connect this to that, and then my point would show up here in the center, and this is exactly what I have in the background. So those are the tools that you can use. I said I'm going to go back to the view menu and show you what that does. So here under background 3D preview, you have a few available previews. So you can say show me the background preview or not, it will disappear. And at the same time, you can show this thing into your Revit environment as well. I'm not sure if it's showing up right now. Yes, it is. So you can see that point that I placed in is here in my Revit environment as well. If I go in and say don't show that, then it will disappear. So if you had something you wanted to show up in your Revit, you need to you should make sure this is on. And if you wanted to see that in the background, again, you need to make sure that is on. If you didn't want to see the grid, that's where to turn it off, and that kind of thing. So those are the very basics of how to use Dynamo. I can stop it here for